Welcome. So in this lesson we're going to look at using Python for basic calculations. So using assignment operators, this can be really quite useful. Now I'm going to introduce you to the majority of the assignment operators and the operators for calculations, but it's just the basic ones we're going to use. We're going to leave the more kind of complex ones until we get to looking at if statements, but I'm going to show them to you now, and what I'd like you to do is just write them down, kind of work out what they do, and just keep them in your mind for the next lesson. So the first thing we're going to do is head on out. Well, actually, let's just look at the objectives for this lesson. So assignment operators and making Python do calculators. So here's some, well, pretty much most of them actually. So this first one, this double equal sign, that basically means that it's going to give you the equals. So when you do one equal sign, that's what we use for variables. So when you want to assign something or data type to a variable, you use one equal sign. When you want to say to add two equals, that's when you'd use a double equal sign. This can get quite confusing, but it's just something you need to remember, okay? The next one is less than. So if you want to find out if something is less than something else, like one number is less than another number, and you can do this comparison. So this next symbol, this arrow, is the less than, and the arrow next to that is the greater than. So you can find out if a number is greater than another number, or if something is greater than something else. The next one is less than or equal to. So if something is either less than a number or equal to that number, you can do something once that comparison's been done. The next one along is greater than or equal to. The next one along is not equal to. So it's just basically say, look, if 2 add 2 is not equal to 4, do something else. If it is, then do this. The next one, this kind of percentage mark, is what's called a modulo, and it will return the remainder of a number. So if you said something like 13 modulo 2, it would return the value of 3, which is the remainder that's left over. The ones below that then is the plus, which basically is add, so 2 add 2. The next one is minus, so 1 minus 1. The star is the times, so what we use for times table. The backslash is divide. The double star is when you want to find a square root of something. And then the plus plus is what we use to iterate over numbers. If you want to grow something by 1 each time or by 2 each time, we use this plus plus. So once we've finished looking at these and putting them into context, I'd like you to create a simple program that kind of does at least 15 different calculations using Python. So let's move to this screen here and let's just save our work firstly. So we've got Python open, so let's go File, Save, and inside of our Python basics, let's just say Python or calculations, so basic calculations. Okay, remember to call it .py and make sure the save as type says Python file, and then press save. So let's just start looking through these, and we're just going to use a print statement just to show us what the answer would be for each of these. So the first one, let's just use our add. So print, and we use some of our data types that we used last time. So we can use our floating point, which is your kind of 1.1, or we can use our integer, which is whole numbers. So let's start with integer values. Let's say 2 add 2. And we can put spaces here. Python's quite good as it doesn't recognize empty spaces. It will bypass that unless it's in a string, of course, in which case it will read it. So we're going to print 2 plus 2, and the answer should be obviously 4. So let's do that now. So nice and basic, it gives us the answer, so it does the calculation. So in Python's most basic form, it will do calculations for you. It will do very, very complex calculations for you. So let's look at the next one. Let's say minus. So 2 minus 2, or we can make something a bit bigger. Let's do a big number there. So let's say run, and we should get a negative number. And there we go. So we can do negative numbers as well. Another thing that you might find that you want to do but it won't work and it'll break is when you want to use a string value. Now, like I said in the previous lesson, if you use it as a string with these speech marks around it, it will not realize that it won't realize that it's actually a number. Let's just change that number to something a bit more visual, 100. It won't realize it's a number, and in this particular case it will return an error. So we should get a nice big error saying that it doesn't understand what it is, because it doesn't understand you can't take away from a string value, basically. Okay, you can concatenate. So if you wanted to say that, what it put a little comma in there, what it would basically do is put the two numbers together. So let's just run that now. So we'd have 100 in front of the 2222222. Okay, so you can see that they've been put together. What I'd like you to do now is just run that simulation. Just have a go at putting those together. Try it as a string value. Try it as as integer values. So just pause the video. Have a go at a couple of calculations for me. Okay, so the other thing you should know is you can just write just numbers. So if you wanted to print the number, you could do that. So if you run that now, and that would just print the number, just in the same way that you could print the string, it would print the number. And also if you wanted to print the floating point with the dot, you could also do that. You can also calculate floating points as well. So you can say 12.3 add 22.5 or 55, and then run it, and you would get the answer. So there you go, 34.85. So these are calculated them together. So you can see that this is quite an efficient calculator. So let's use times now. Let's just times that value by putting it in a star, and we can run that as well. And then we can have that. You can also, I'll let you guys try the divide, because it's fairly simple, and I'll let you try some of the other ones. The one I do want to show you is the modulo. The one that the modulo returns the remainder. So if I say something like 10 modulo 3, that should give us a remainder. So let's just see how that works out. Should give us a remainder of 1, hopefully. There we go. So, but that's a really clever one. If you just want to find out the remainder of something, that's great. Now, what else can we do with this? We can also save these in variables. So if we wanted to save them in a variable, we could say num, oops, remember it's only one space, num1 is 33, num2 is input, and then we'll just get the user to input a number. So input a number, please. And now don't forget that it's got to be a string value. So let's just string value that. And then we can say, we can call up the variables then. We can say num1 plus num2. So let's see if that works. So let's say 55, press enter, and it gives us a fuzzy number. Now the reason it gives us this is because it sees it as a string rather than an integer. So what we basically need to do now is convert whatever gets saved into an integer. So what we can do here is we can put another set of brackets around it, and then we can just call up the word int. Okay, and hopefully that will work. So let's run that again. Then it says what number, say 55 again, and then we get the answer. So it's really important that you understand this, that if it sees a value as an integer, sorry, if it sees a value as a string, it's not going to kind of know what you want it to do. So your mission then, using those basic calculations of add, minus, times, divide, and probably modulo as well, see if you can come up with a few different variations of making Python do calculations. Also remember to use some of the stuff that we learned in the other lessons, like saving them as variables, letting the user input a number, and we could even try concatenation. So we could even say something like num1. So if you wanted to concatenate this, you could say num1 let's see, the so is, and then you can concatenate it. And there's other ways in which we can do that, but that's where I'm going to leave you guys now. So create this program, make sure there's at least 15 different variations of how to do calculations using Python, and I will see you in the next lesson when we look at if statements.